Getting an 800 credit score is difficult, I'm not gonna lie. But just like anything in life that's worth the squeeze, it's generally not easy. There's a lot of misconceptions out there on how our credit system works, so I'm recording this video today to provide some clarity to my viewers and show you how I was able to reach that milestone and surpass it. It hasn't been all glitz and glamour all my life. I've had to really kind of struggle and climb this mountain. Just to give you some background, when I was 18 years old, I remember going to the dealership thinking I was gonna leave with the baddest car. Man, I get to the front and find out that I have a beacon score of 359. Oh, the guy looked at me and said, man, you can't buy smoke off a hot dog. That's when I learned that I needed to change some things up, really dive into this credit bureaus and see what I could do to improve my score and go from there. So before we dive into how to increase your credit score, let's go ahead and talk about what a credit score is and how it can impact your life. So just like in grade school, your credit report is really just a report card on how well you keep your promises when it comes to paying bills. Having a good credit score will actually put you ahead in life by saving you tons of money. For example, when you go to a dealership and you buy a car and the interest rates, let's say 12% versus buying a car with interest rate of 6%, this can make it to where your payments are going to not only be higher, but a bigger chunk of that is going to go to interest. It's going to take longer to pay off your car. That's why it's so important to watch this video. Whether you are a rookie just starting out with tons of questions, or you're a seasoned veteran, but you're just at the tipping toe, you're in the 700s and you just can't figure out why you can't get to 800, this video is for you. Depending on the level of your discipline, this whole process can be easy. And the best part is, it doesn't cost you a dime. All I ask for in return is a quick like and subscribe. Other than that, let's get to the video. Now first, in order to understand how you can get a perfect credit score, you got to understand how the system scores you. We're going to pick apart the 5 parts that make up your credit score. And first, we're going to talk about the one that has the tiniest impact at just 10% of your score, which is called credit inquiries. Now, here's how this one works. Anytime you go apply for credit, it gets reported to the credit bureaus, and it's what's called a hard inquiry. It shows up on your report. This helps lenders track how many times you're asking for credit. The more times you ask for credit, the more you're seen as a riskier borrower, according to the lenders. This is because the lenders are actually worried that something has happened in your life that's causing you to go out, open up a whole bunch of credit lines with no intention of paying anything back. So try to keep this at a minimum. The good thing is these inquiries only show up on your credit report. The good thing is these inquiries only show up on your credit report for 2 years, and they only have impact on your score for 1 year. After that, they drop off and it's like they never happened in the first place. The other good news is when you shop around for a mortgage loan or an auto loan, credit bureaus already know that it's a good practice to check with several different companies. With that in mind, if you get multiple hard inquiries, all within 3 to 4 weeks, they generally consider all those count as one inquiry. So feel free to go out there, shop several companies so you can get the best rate possible. The second part of your credit score, which also makes up 10%, is the amount of credit lines you have open. Now this part is not going to happen overnight, but the goal here is to open as many high limit credit cards as you possibly can. Now obviously if you're just starting out, you may just offered what's called a secured line of credit, where you actually have to deposit some money and then you borrow against it, or you may get lucky and get at least a $500 unsecured line. As you start to build up your credit lines, you want to start thinking about opening up different types of lines, such as boat loans, home loans, auto loans, you name it. If you're having trouble getting approved on a loan, a good way around this is to go ahead and get a friend or a family member to go ahead and be what's called a cosigner. When this happens, the lender's going to start looking at their income and their credit history along with yours, and together you might get approved. The third thing the credit bureaus look at when it comes to your credit history is called length of credit history. This just means the sooner you start, the better off you are. This is one of the reasons why I always recommend as soon as you turn 18, go out and try to get credit. This will build an entire foundation from an early start. And one thing to take into consideration here is they don't look at the entire credit history. What they do look at is the average time of history. For instance, if you opened a credit card 10 years ago, but then you open another one up 3 weeks ago, they're going to grade your score as if you have 5 years of credit history. The same also applies if you close old credit accounts. So in our example here, let's say you close the credit card account that you opened up 10 years ago because you just got a new credit card 3 weeks ago and that limit's higher. Now your average length of time has been decreased, which is going to impact your score negatively. So definitely do not close any old credit card accounts. The older they get, the greater chance you have of getting to 800 score and beyond. This part of the process, it does take some time, but if you see this through and just be patient, you'll see the results take off. The fourth aspect of your credit score and what makes up 30% is called credit utilization. Ideally, you want to be using underneath 10% of your total credit limit, which shows the credit bureaus that you don't need all the money because you're that good with budgeting. Income versus expenses of what you chose to obligate yourself with. Here's how this works and how it's calculated. Let's say you have a credit card and the limit is $5,000 and you have a balance of $3,000. You just simply make the minimum monthly payments on it. So at this time you have a credit utilization of 60%, which is on the high end, so you're seen as a riskier borrower because you're carrying a higher balance. So with that, your credit score drops. On the other hand, if you spend that same $3,000, instead of sending minimum payments, you send in $2,500 to get your balance down to $500. Now you have a credit utilization of only 10%, which is on the low end, so that increases your credit score. It's not necessarily the balance that the credit bureaus care about. It's the percentage of the limit that you're given. So the best way to combat this is to open up as many credit cards as you can and raise the limits as high as possible. So when you do make big purchases, the credit availability from your other credit cards that you're not using comes and offsets the balance you have on the credit card that you are. I recommend you ask for a credit card limit every 12 months on every credit card you have. This way, you'll be constantly lowering your utilization and improving your credit card score. The best part is you don't have to fill out a lengthy full application like when you first open the credit card. You literally just answer a few questions, hit the submit button, and boom, wait a few days and you usually have an answer whether or not you'll get a credit card increase. Just remember, don't go out there and spending a ton of money now just because you got your credit card limit increase. You made it this far in the video and I appreciate it. I do want to know, what do you think about credit utilization and how it's looked at? Do you think it makes sense that the more you use, the more you're docked? What about the credit inquiries? Do you think it's fair that the more we try to open credit, that it actually docks us? And just in general, leave some comments down below. I'm curious to know, do you think the way the credit scoring system in America is fair? If not, what would you do to fix it? What kind of policies would you make? And what do you think is so unfair about it? And what could be done to make it better? And now, back to the video. And finally, we have what makes up the biggest part of your credit score at 35%. This section is called your on-time payment history. Now here how that's calculated. They look at all your on-time payments and then divide that by the total amount of payments that have been due. And from that, they're able to see what percentage of time you paid on time. So for example, if you've had one credit card and you've had it for 6 months and you miss one payment, that'll give you a paid on time percentage score of 83%. However, if you've had that same credit card for 5 years and you miss one payment, your paid on time ratio is a staggering 98%, a lot closer to the goal. I know this can be tough. It was tough for me. I went through job losses, I went through losing capital, trading stocks, plenty of times. I just had emergencies come up and didn't have the money to pay the debt on the credit cards. But the good news is this: for them to count your payment as on time, you only need to make the minimum payment, which in a lot of cases is around $20 to $30. I do recommend sending more than that because remember, the credit card company is charging interest on your balance every month. So then the next month, they're not only charging you interest on what you spent at the store, but now they're charging you interest on the interest that was added to your balance last month. This is how you hear those stories where some people take 11, 12 years to pay off a balance of $1,500 because no one ever told them and they were not aware of the effects of compounding interest has against you sending minimum payments. So let's talk more about that 800 credit card score. To get that, you're gonna wanna show 0 inquiries in the last 12 months, have 9 years or more of average length of time of credit history, and utilize 5% or less of your total credit limit. It's not gonna happen overnight, and I can attest it's gonna take a lot of good budgeting decisions on top of other decisions. It's not impossible, and although it's free, it just takes some time and patience. To be fair, anything over a 770 is pretty much perfection. Someone who has an 810 credit score versus someone who has a 770 is not gonna get lower interest rate over the person with a 780 credit score. So really, anything over 770 is just bragging rights. Aim to keep your score at 770 or above, and that'll give you the lowest amount of monthly payments, save you the most amount of money, and get you the lowest interest rates. And lastly, I recommend you use a credit score service to check your score once a month. There's services out there like Credit Karma or Credit Sesame. Both are good choices to get a good representation of where your score stands. Definitely check out annualcreditreport.com. You can check your credit here once a year without any effect to your score whatsoever. I don't recommend you go and check your credit using I don't recommend you check your score by going and trying to open credit and getting a hard inquiry. This is going to add up and eventually lower your score, so avoid doing that. On that note, thank y'all for watching. If y'all enjoy content like this, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.